his future. That brain fade at Ascari. Is his career spinning away? We ask the questions and more. We talk about all the penalties as well through that race. There was quite a few to get through and a few to wrap your head around. And Renault and Daniel Ricciardo. That seems to be a pretty nice pair. Is he going to be happy with that result? Renault on the right path. Checkered flag. Well, we quickly discussed Stroll. He got into Q3. We thank the cameramen for all their fantastic work of showing the trees. 3 points away from a race ban is Sebastian Vettel. And Hamilton, Hamburger, he's got a new vegan store. We talk about that. S3 awards as usual. And then the Rookie Watch after that. Podium predictions. We go over the ones from Monza. And then ours, future ones for Singapore. A bit of sim racing and esports news to get through this week. And we'll finish with the Fantasy League. And that will round off tonight's Lights Out F1 podcast. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to put us a review, a 5-star review. If you're on iTunes, you can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, FM, all your favourite podcasters. So search for Lights Out F1 podcast. Here's tonight's episode. Enjoy. Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 17 of the Lights Out F1 podcast. We've just had the Monza Grand Prix in Italy, and this one's titled, What a Mess! And obviously, Dr. Oars is here with me tonight. How you going, buddy?
Very good, Josh. And what a mess it was, that final qualifying on Saturday, eh?
Yes, it was a shit show. Just
that's what I call it.
There's nothing, no other way to describe it. It was embarrassing. It was funny, but infuriating. And yeah, we'll obviously talk a lot more about it. Well, we will, because in the first 5 Lights On, 5 Lights Out segment tonight is the Q3 shit show. So light one is...
Yeah, let's get straight into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. So, obviously, the tow was a big deal here at the Monza circuit, like it is every year, but come the second run in Q3, everyone was trying to outplay and outwit each other. A lot of things happened. Let's start, first of all, with Hülkenberg running off, trying to get behind Stroll, because that infuriated you a lot after...
Well, it was... How obvious was it? I mean, he didn't even at least fake a lock-up, you know? Like, previously when Vettel did it, at least he locked up so you could... There was a little bit of doubt, you know, if it was purpose or not. But Hülkenberg basically went out of the pits and you could hear on the radio his engineer was telling him, remember the plan. Now, come on, man. What else does that tell you? So then he just, you know, zigzags his way through very slowly too. But obviously Stroll was up to it because his engineer was also warning him what Hülkenberg was going to do because everyone knows. No one wants to be that one out the front. But
yeah, I think Hülkenberg, I think it probably all started because Daniel Ricciardo got caught out trying to get behind him. Interestingly, I was actually watching the onboard of Ricciardo for that session, and as soon as Hülkenberg went out, Ricciardo tried, but everyone else just, you know, filed out at the same time, so he got caught at the back, and yeah, it was just a absolute mess of a lap. Absolute mess. It we thought there might be some more penalties handed out, but in the end that didn't really happen.
Well, was it on the same day or no, it was the day before on the F3s they had a same shit show, even worse because it's like 30 cars on the grid with them, and coming into the Parabolica, there was like 17 cars all just stumbling over each other, and they actually red flagged the session and just called it off. And then 17 of those guys got penalised, grid penalties, between 5 grid slots to 10 grid slots, depending where they were, I guess. But my biggest point was we penalised them for turning qualifying into an absolute farce. Now, when the F1 boys do it, who are, you know, much more experienced, they are at the top of the sport here, and yet we just let them get away with it. That was my biggest gripe with the whole thing. The stewards penalised the younger kids for doing it, but then I guess you'll say the professionals didn't get any penalties for it.
Yeah, well, I didn't see the F3. I heard about it, but if you're saying they all slowed at Parabolica, that's got to be a massive safety concern right there. I know it's pretty much the same thing, but yeah, if you're all slowing down at Parabolic, that's not a slow corner.
That's exactly why they red flagged it.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised that they got penalties for that. But the stewards, they warned Hulkenberg, but they couldn't really define if he had purposefully driven off circuit. I think that was one of the wording it had in the official FIA statement, didn't it? Something like that.
Technically, yeah, they couldn't justify it. But I think... Well, what did you think? You saw the onboard. He came out of the pits, meandered out. One of the interesting facts I found also was going into turn one there, on that outlap where he went straight through the barricades, he was in third gear, whereas the previous outlap, he was in second gear because he had full intention of taking that corner, turn one.
Yep.
So these stewards, I know what they're saying, that they couldn't prove it, but that's almost proof right there, isn't it? I mean, you're in a much higher gear, you're just rolling through because you have absolutely no intention of turning right, you're just going to go straight. So
yeah, you'd think the telemetry would have really... There would have been a huge disparity between a normal lap and that lap. That probably would have shown that he probably didn't even attempt to brake at the same point or brake as hard or whatever it was.
Exactly.
I don't know.
But it was...
I get why they were doing it, but yeah, it was horrible. We're not going to forget that one in a hurry.
Definitely not. It's, it's shades of 2005 Indianapolis when the tyre wars were on and we had like 6 cars turning up for the race.
Yep.
But I actually found this one more embarrassing. I know other people have disagreed with me, but at least with Indianapolis, there was a safety issue, a very real safety issue, and the drivers were not willing to put themselves at risk. And it was just more of a political mess, that one, because they were going to they wanted to put a chicane to slow the people on the bend.
That's right.
On the banking.
Yep.
And then obviously the Bridgestone runners didn't agree to it, so then it just became a standoff. But here, it was just the drivers and the teams, mind you. I mean, you've got all these engineers, all this telemetry, as you say, at the pit wall. They know everything to the T. They leave them to the absolute last second before they get them out of the pit box, and this is what happens.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about it through the year now about because we've had obviously Austria, we had Hungary, a few incidences there. We've had little incidents all the way through the year, and now it's all culminated into this mess. And they even before the session they said there's a minimum lap time for the outlaps and stuff. So surely they all were under that minimum lap time. So there should have been a penalty for that alone. You know what I mean?
I never got to the bottom of if it was actually a mandated minimum lap time or was it just mentioned.
I heard it was a FIA ruling that there'll be a minimum lap time and they'll be policing it for this qualifying. So it was somewhere around the 1 minute 40. So enough time to get around, but still, they took a lot longer than a minute 40 on that second run, pretty much for everyone.
Maybe it's not so much the minimum lap time. I mean, I definitely don't want any knee-jerk reactions. I want to make that clear. I don't want to change qualifying just because of this one event that we had on the weekend.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people suggesting we need a change, but
I've heard so much.
That is so typical F1 knee-jerk. Just something goes wrong, we've got to fix it. Yes, it was bad. Yes, it looked bad. It was terrible, but it's the first time it's happened. It's only an issue if it's a consistent thing, because it's quite unique at Monza with the toe.
But let's remember this too. I mean, as fans, sure, we were all disappointed and pretty much embarrassed for the sport that we didn't get that final run in Q3. But having said that, there's no law that says, as fans, we have to see every driver do 2 Q3 runs.
Yeah, that's true.
There's been multiple times when people have got into Q3 and not even done one lap, so there's no rule there. So all the drivers did here was just stuff themselves up, really, and just made a mockery of the whole system. So I doubt very much if we're running Monza next week that this would happen again. I'm sure that they probably learnt their lesson from it, but it just should never have got to that point, is what I'm saying. Like, they leave it to that absolute last second for usually it's the Mercedes. As soon as one of the Mercs leave, then they all leave. You know, they're all ready with the tyre blankets, but as soon as one blinks, they all go. What's going to happen if you went 30 seconds earlier? Like if Leclerc and Vettel went out together 30 seconds before the Mercs, Leclerc goes out in front, Vettel gets the tow. It's not like in that 30 seconds extra that the track is going to evolve so much, you know?
Yeah, it's only going to be
What
minuscule.
are they waiting for? Why are they waiting to the absolute last second for?
I guess that's something the teams have to debrief themselves on now and reevaluate.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it is a bit dumb. I never really understood it. I know track evolution's a big thing, but to avoid something like that, like you said, the two guys go out together a little bit earlier and one gets the tow, the other doesn't, so be it. That's just what happens.
Exactly. And that's what it's curious. They're all like sheep. They all wait for one to jump and then they all go. Like, it's like there's 10 guys there, man. Like, not even one of them, not even one of the teams said, all right, guys, let's go now before everyone else gets out there. And the bad part about this track, let's not call it bad, but it's an old school track, so it's not really wide at all. That was the biggest issue, because you would see from the onboard from Hamilton or even Daniel at the back of the queue there, as soon as two cars go wide, you can't get around them. It's too tight going around that Curva Grande leading up to the second chicane there, and the entire track is pretty tight.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know, I don't get it, but I don't know, we were sort of robbed of probably a great ending to that. Sainz and did Leclerc get through?
Apparently, Leclerc made it over the line with a bee's dick to spare.
Yeah, so I mean, none of them. Leclerc dropped that lap and Sainz wasn't able to improve. But I always think, like, if one of them had just gone, they could have stolen a podium. Like, if Hulkenberg had just nailed it, he probably would have stolen a podium, possibly. Just
you mean this is the qualifying we're talking about, not the race.
Not the race. So. Still talking about qualifying, but yeah, well, you know what I mean. A top 3 start for the race. Very possible.
Once Sainz got away, I was praying that he was just going to be able to put it together and somehow he was going to outdo the first runs, but he was just way off, not fast enough. But,
yeah, well, I think the tow's worth at least 2/10.
Oh, they said, actually, Daniel Ricciardo today, I heard he said it was worth up to 0.7.
Shit.
But on Saturday night or through the weekend, I heard that it was about 0.5 on average. The teams were saying that it's worth.
Okay.
That's what made Vettel's lap a real stonker of a lap in the first run, because he was out in front breaking the air and Leclerc got the tow.
Yeah.
But he was barely 0.2 ahead of Vettel. That's why I think Vettel was really spewing with the way everything panned out, and he didn't end up getting the tow.
Well, he said that because he was like, Leclerc needs to go in front, etc., but Leclerc didn't really get an opportunity to pass him.
He kind of did.
Well, where he did pass him, but you know, at the start,
he was actually in front of Sainz, but then he let Sainz go back in front of him. If at that point, once he got in front of Sainz, Leclerc should have just kept going. But obviously, he's young, he's smart, he's ambitious. He didn't want to give Vettel the tow.
Well, yeah, he had the pole spot. And even Hamilton was like, well, you know, if we just don't let them do a second lap, then you can get the pole position. I mean, it worked, but I don't want to see it every week.
Well, that was Q3, and it was very embarrassing for Formula One. But, you know, at the same time, it was kind of comical too, how they all just come around Parabolica there, and it's like,
yeah, like even all the radio they have, like, you're not going to make it. Like, we were watching it, like, they're not going to make it. This is ridiculous. I've never seen this before. Toto had a smirk on his face and knew it was absolutely ridiculous. It was, but like you said, I don't want to see knee-jerk reactions to this, because I really, really enjoy the current qualifying format, and it's usually the most entertaining aspect of the weekend, even if we do get a slightly unexciting race. The qualifying always delivers. So,
at the end of the day, if we are going to be talking about changes and whatnot, yeah, sure, I've got some ideas, but we can leave that for another show. But the point here is, qualifying is not broken. There's so many other aspects of Formula One that needs fixing before we even think about touching qualifying.
I would agree.
That's the way I look at it.
I would agree with that one. So let's finish off with there, and we'll end the first light of the Q3 shit show. Let us know what you think as well in the comments section at Facebook, Lights at F1. I'm trying to post on there more recently. I don't know if you've noticed. I've had a few posts.
Mm-hmm.
So please, you can join us there. All the Discord links and stuff are in the description. And you can find us podcast places, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, Stitcher, FM, a whole bunch of them. So
everywhere you get your podcast, you'll find us there.
Obviously, you know that because you found it and you're listening.
That's right. But with the Facebook page, I keep meaning to do it, and to be honest, I've just been slack and I forget. So I've got to try to get into a routine where after each race, I want to put up a post where people can actually jump in there in the comments and maybe, make a comment in regards to the race or something for us to discuss in the podcast, or if there's a question, they can chuck it in there and we can discuss it. So we've just got to try to get into a better routine and get that happening.
Yeah, we'll get better. All right, on to Light 2. It was all about Leclerc after the Sunday's race. He got his second win in 2 races. So that's a pretty good record for him. And at Monza, of all places, it was absolutely electric. Tifosi and the chanting and the DJ and the parties and the confetti, and I loved it. I loved it.
Mate, you got Monaco, and then if you're a Ferrari fan, if you're just a Formula One fan, full stop, to see a Ferrari win at Monza, and then when that podium comes up and it's just a sea of red up and down that pit straight, how amazing is that?
Oh, it's so good. It's of all the podiums that I watch, the Monza one is always the one I stay up for, regardless, because it's just so awesome. And I really want to go there one day and be there for a Monza podium, because it'd just be out of this world. But
if you're going to go to Monaco, it's on every Formula One fan's bucket list to get to Monaco, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's not for the race itself.
Yeah.
And here, as you said, Monza, for a European race, just to go and witness it, and if you are lucky enough, as you were this weekend, to be there on a Ferrari win, wow.
Yeah. Oh.
It's been 9 years since the last time they did this, Alonso. 9 years ago.
I know.
So how lucky were all those people to actually be there when Ferrari wins again?
I was so envious watching it. I was just like, I really want to be there. I really, really want to be there. I had tears coming out of my eyes. I was like, I just loved it so much. And I don't know if it's the fact that I'm not Italian myself, but I've got quite a lot of Italian friends and now family, thanks to the missus in my life. But yeah, I get why it's so good. It's just awesome. Just the passion Italian show is just nothing. It's like nothing else.
Well, as you know, I'm off to Japan this year for the race, and mate, if I was going to swap it for any other race, this would be the race. And funnily enough, I'm actually going to Italy later on in the Christmas break with the family, but unfortunately it's not in Formula One time.
Yeah. Well, it was Leclerc that made it happen, got the top spot, and he defended it very, very, very valiantly, if not right on the limit of what is acceptable. So should we start with the first defensive mood he had on Hamilton? Because that stirred up quite a lot of controversy this week.
Mate, first thing I want to say about Leclerc is, last week he won at Spa, and we even mentioned it, and it's been well noted that Sebastian helped him. Basically, I'm not going to say he handed him the victory, but he definitely helped him and played his part in Leclerc's win last week at Spa.
Yeah.
But here this weekend, it was all 100% on Leclerc's shoulders. The minute those lights went out to the checkered flag, he withstood so much pressure. so much pressure,
Yes, he did.
and he came out smiling on the other end of it.
He did.
So I have to give him the credit. I've been critical of him through the season.
Yep.
You know, in my mind, deservedly so at times.
Well, even he,
But
I read a comment from him just this week, and he said he has made mistakes, and he says he's heard the criticisms he had about coming into Ferrari after only 1 year with Alpha, and then the mistakes he's made. He says that could be down to his youth as well, but he can't. That's not an excuse. So he thinks he's grown a lot just this year alone.
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm giving credit where credit's due, and this could very well be the changing of the guard there at Ferrari.
Yeah, we will talk about that. But yeah, I think we should clear the air with the defensive move on Hamilton, running him off the road. Interestingly, it was a very similar move that was made in the F2 race. I don't know if you saw the F2. I think it was in the sprint race. Did you happen to watch that?
I did not see it live, but I saw a replay of the incident you're talking about.
Yep.
And
where he had the puncture. Yep. See, and he got a penalty for that.
5-second penalty.
Yeah, and fair enough. Because this is how I see it, right? You've got that edge, that line, that limit. In F2, he pushed it too far, got a puncture, ruined someone's race. Okay, fair enough. 5-second penalty. But with Leclerc, he was right on it, if not just about to go over it, but it didn't ruin anyone's race. There was no puncture, there was no crash, there was no spin, there was nothing. He made the corner still. Yes, he squeezed him out, but he had to do something. It was Leclerc versus everyone. And
look,
I thought he got a black and white flag for it, fair enough, but a warning's a warning, and that was it. I don't think it was deserving of a stop-go or a 5-second penalty or anything of that nature.
Mate, in my mind, if it wasn't even brought up on social media or what, it's not even a talking point for me. Like, it's not even something that I need to say, oh yeah, that was a racing incident.
Yeah.
I'm saying, I'm even taking the incident out of it, and I'm saying that was racing. Because
I agree, man.
he came on the outside, Hamilton. First of all, Hamilton was being very ambitious to actually take him around the outside. Now, it's not impossible, but he wasn't hand over fist faster than Leclerc to be able to pull that move off cleanly to begin with.
No.
He was always going to end up squeezing himself on the exit of the chicane there anyway,
Yes.
even if they went inside by side.
Yep.
But besides the point, Leclerc's leading the race. Hamilton's trying to pass him on the outside there. Yes, Leclerc squeezed him, but it's nothing that Hamilton hasn't done. I've seen him do it countless times to Rosberg in the past, you know. But what I found most interesting about it all is this is probably the first time that he's actually been on the receiving end of this. And even after the race, he himself said, oh, well, now I know the rules.
Oh, that was bullshit.
It's kind of like, in Hamilton's mind, he's just had Leclerc's Austria moment. Now he's like, okay, well, if they're the rules, that's because that's what Leclerc said. He goes, after Austria, I realised what the rules are. So now he's done it to Verstappen at Silverstone. Now he's done it to Hamilton here.
Yeah.
But me personally, I wouldn't have even given him the black and white flag for that.
I wouldn't have either. I think it was racing, and that's what racing should be. But what do you make of the comments that Hamilton said about, this younger generation's getting away with a lot more these days?
It's a load of crap. That's just Hamilton. These are the things that I do not like about Hamilton, as you know.
Yeah. Is it because he's a vegan?
Yeah, sometimes he just can't. I'm going to come to that later, actually. But
just have a barbecue.
Sometimes he just can't stop himself from dribbling shit.
Right.
It's most of the time it's calculated, and he tries to get stuff out there. But see, you heard it right on the radio. He was going off at Leclerc, how it's unfair, it's unsafe driving. He's very dangerous. This, that. Then after the race, in the conference or the interviews, he continued to say, as you said, this younger generation, blah blah blah. But then the next thing you see on social media, he sent a tweet to Leclerc saying, "Oh, that was good hard racing, this and this," and then
That's the
I
other thing.
read that, and then I'm like, "Oh man, he does a backflip! Like, just stick to you. If you really think it was unfair, if you really think it was dangerous, stick to it. Don't do a backflip less than 24 hours later."
Well, I can't remember what race it was this year that he said, but he's like, "Oh, I really want to have hard races up the front with the people like Leclerc." So he's like, "I can't wait till I'm racing, wheel to wheel with the future generation," and that's exactly what he got. And it was so good to watch. And I agree, stick to your guns here instead of changing your mind and, I don't know, trying to appease to the fans or whatever it might be. But
that's what happens. He comes out, and then he starts reading social media on his Insta and his Facebook and his Twitter,
Yep.
and he sees all the backlash that Formula One fans have given him for, well, that's racing, and then he does a backflip on it, and then makes himself look good,
Yep.
in inverted commas, and then all the fanboys start coming out. Oh, look, he's so good.
yeah, well, I mean, you and I agree on this one. It wasn't really a talking point, but for some reason, the entire world made it a big deal.
Well,
but that's racing.
What I'm most surprised at is there was another incident. I think it was after that. I can't remember exactly now if it was a few laps before or if it was after. I'm pretty sure it was after it. When coming down the main straight, Leclerc locked up.
It was after.
And he cut across the first chicane there over the speed humps rather than taking the escape route to the left.
Yep.
He came out in front of Hamilton.
Yep.
Now,
Hamilton was a lot closer now.
That was very reminiscent of Vettel versus Hamilton in Canada.
That's exactly what I thought too.
Right? In this instance, Hamilton didn't quite get side by side with Leclerc.
No.
And there was no wall there, like as there was at Canada.
Yeah.
But I think that, at the very least, warranted the black and white flag.
Yep.
And if we're trying to compare apples with apples, going back to Canada, we have to say, well, then that was a penalty right there. But it wasn't even mentioned.
Well, I wasn't really worried about that one because I know he sort of cut across back in front and sort of blocked his run, but Hamilton was so much closer after that. So to me, there was no advantage gained on Leclerc's side of things. I think Hamilton was the one that gained a lot from it.
Well, here's the thing, Josh. All the drivers know, if you cannot make turn one, you are supposed to go on the left-hand side and through those barriers.
Yeah.
You are supposed to weave your way through, not cut right and go across the chicane as Leclerc did. Now, he didn't have to go right. He chose to go right. So I say that's where his advantage was. If he swings it left, goes through the barricades, comes back out, it's all in hindsight now, but I bet you Hamilton's in front by the time Leclerc rejoins the track.
Yeah, easily. But you're Leclerc. You got to do something.
Just as Vettel had to do something just get his car back onto the track in Canada. And I'm not saying he should have got a penalty, but I'm just surprised that all the focus was on the actual hard racing rather than here, where he, in my mind, blatantly cut the track.
Right.
So
I see what you're
was
saying.
A little bit surprised with that one, yeah.
I mean, I was relatively impressed with the stewards this weekend. I know there were probably a few ifs and buts, but I thought overall...
They were busy, that's for sure.
Oh, shit oath. But I thought overall they were doing a pretty good job of just letting the racing be racing.
And just so we're clear, I'm not saying I would have given Leclerc a penalty for that. I'm just surprised that it wasn't debated amongst the fans so much more than all the focus was on that
first one,
previous incident. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird how things like that happen.
And then just to I guess to hammer that point home, Hammer time coming down the straight locked up, and that's how he lost second place to Bottas, because he couldn't make that turn one and he went through the barricades. Bottas passed him and then he ended up, but by this stage his tyres were on the way out because he was pressing so hard with Leclerc. But that's case in point. He took the correct route Leclerc didn't. So that was... I don't know. I feel like maybe it should have been debated a bit more, or it should have been a bigger issue than the other one.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, but it didn't really register for me. I just thought...
All in all, it was hard racing, and I freaking loved it. And it wasn't just a battle of gaps. It was like he was up his clacker all the way. There was like a second, maybe maximum of 1.5 seconds between them for pretty much the entire race.
Yeah.
Except for when they went in the pits.
Well, when Leclerc was running out of Parabolica down the main straight, if Hamilton was within 5 to 6 tenths, he was not going to overtake him. Every time he came out and it read 6 tenths or 5 tenths, I was calm as a cool cucumber because I was like, Hamilton hasn't got the pace here. So I was very, very cool. But it was when it got to 3 tenths, 2 tenths that I started to worry. But the Ferraris just had the traction out of those corners that the Mercedes just did not have.
It wasn't the corners, it was Parabolica. That was the most impressive for me, the way Leclerc was getting out of Parabolica lap after lap after lap. He nailed it every single time because he knew he had to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there must have been some battery storage going on and saving it for that moment, because every single time he would pull out enough of a gap on Hamilton coming out of Parabolica.
Yeah, it was magical. It was perfect strategy. Now, we've talked about the change of the guard possibly, because obviously Vettel's been trying for years and years and years to win at Monza, and Leclerc does it in his first year at Ferrari. That can't be great for Vettel and his mental state. And there's now talk of maybe Leclerc becoming the number one. It's very possible.
Well, even more, I guess, and to add salt to the wound, I mean, Vettel won there 11 years ago. His first victory was there at Monza in the Toro Rosso.
Yeah.
So that was his first victory there. And he hasn't been able to pull it off in the Ferrari in the last, 4-5 years now? 4 years?
Was it 2000? I can't remember.
But now you get Vettel,
Leclerc,
who's been in there for 10 races?
Yep.
And bang!
And he's a bloody hero now. So, do we forgive, like you said at the start, do we forgive and forget about Leclerc's past mistakes?
Well, no. And I'm not also jumping on this bandwagon of just saying, oh yeah, he's definitely the number one now.
Yep. I think he's on his way if things continue the way they are.
That's why I said it could possibly be, this could be marking, well, it could definitely be marking the changing of the guard.
Yeah.
But a lot of people also noticed the very first thing Binotto said to Leclerc as soon as he crossed the line. He didn't say good race, he didn't say well done, he didn't say anything. The very first thing he said to him in Italian, which was translated as, today you are excused. That was the very first thing he said.
Is that what he said? I'll have to go back and have a listen.
He said, today you are excused. So as in, there was obviously a lot of turmoil going behind the scenes with qualifying the previous day.
I didn't even know that. Okay, so that's interesting.
He was definitely in the naughty book going into the race.
Right.
But he redeemed himself, in Benito's words.
Well, in F1, you've got to perform though to stay. If you are a number one driver, you got to be getting the results, and Vettel just has not been doing that. So Leclerc obviously needs to continue on this path of winning, getting podiums, and finishing races, I think. But I had no idea that they were that upset about yesterday or the previous day's qualifying. I actually didn't know. Well,
he did not come on and say, well done, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and by the way, you've redeemed yourself. It was actually the very first thing he said to him.
Okay. All right.
So
I want to go back and translate that myself. That's interesting. Yep.
Going back to that, this is, you know what all this is? This is all karma. Coming back to Vettel for all the shit that he did to Webber back in the day.
Well.
And And going back to the Hamilton thing and him whinging at Leclerc, it's also calmer there with these young upstarts now coming. Max has been there for a while now, but now they're giving it to the older generation. When they came through, you got to remember, this is Formula One. I've been watching this for over 35 years, man. You cannot become a Formula One champion if you are not a prick.
No.
At some point, you have to be a prick. You have to have that mentality. You have to be selfish.
Yeah, you do.
You have to be selfish.
And you have to test the boundaries sometimes. I mean, Michael Schumacher did it all the time. So, I don't think the driving standards have changed in Formula One. I think it's just maybe people are just starting to become a little bit more aggressive and wheel-to-wheel racing, because for so long we've had this dominance in the hybrid era with Mercedes especially. And if things start getting all close and matchy, everyone starts racing closer and together again, we get more wheel-to-wheel racing, we get more action like this out on track, which is a good thing. For sure,
100%. And now that, as you said, we're getting to engine parity, so more. Well, look at this. This was a full-on engine race this weekend.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're going to come to our boy Dan, but it's an engine race, and there's not a big difference between the Mercedes and the Honda and the Renault in outright pace, like in outright horsepower. The Ferrari's definitely out there as the strongest.
Yeah.
But they're not like, back in the day. Remember how Hamilton and Mercedes, they could have their engines turned down and they were still pulling away half a second, whenever they wanted, as they pleased.
Yeah, they'd finish races 20, 25 seconds ahead of the rest, and it was...
And that was them just taking it easy.
Yeah. It's not like that now. Well, Hamilton was asking for full power at one point,
He wasn't given it because they're still a little bit worried with their engines, because it's the latest fourth evolution or something, the fourth spec, I think.
Yeah, V4 or something, yeah.
Spec 4 engine or whatever it is that just came in last week, and then we had those few blow-ups. Did one blow up this weekend again in one of the Force Indias?
Yeah, wasn't it Perez?
Kubica? No.
Kubica's Williams, mate. Perez.
Yeah, but did his blow up, or was that last week? I'm thinking we had two back-to-back races. I can't remember.
No, I think you're thinking about last week. But
yeah,
the Racing Point, they had a few issues this week as well. I think Perez had an issue.
So Mercedes still aren't 100% confident with this current gen engine, so they weren't giving him Mode 11.
Fair enough.
But let's move on to Light 3, which is just blends into more of the Vettel chat. I mean, another brain fade all by himself, no one around. He just spun the car around. Now, we're talking about the changing of the guard, and I was saying to you there, is his career spinning away from him?
I couldn't believe it. 2 years in a row. This time, this was all him. He was complaining of the back end being loose the laps prior, and it just got him on that. Was it lap 4 or whatever? But oh man, 6, you don't do that if you're winning championship. You can't.
He's a 4-time world champion, and yes, it's a completely different car to what the Red Bull was. I've defended him so much, and I'm not even a Vettel fan. And sometimes, while I'm in discussions or in debates, and I'm defending him, I'm starting to think to myself, "Shit, am I a Vettel fan?" I'm like, like I've just run out of excuses. Like, I've just got nothing left. There was no excuse for this weekend.
I think he just needs to take a break. I don't know what it is going on behind the scenes or what's happening in his head, but he just makes far too many silly errors like that. And then to top it off with just running into Stroll the way he did. I know he probably couldn't have turned it, but you would have known there's like 16 cars to come. It's not rocket science. It was just bizarre to me how that whole thing unfolded.
I'm questioning more why his team aren't helping him because they know their drivers can't see out of these cars, right? As far as left and right goes. So they've got the GPS data of all the cars on the track.
Yeah.
Why can't they just say, hold, hold, hold? Then again, were they saying that and he just went because he was, so eager to get back? Who knows?
I don't think... Whenever if I watch, say, Verstappen on board, there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of the gaps. Yeah. There's a lot of this. There's a lot of that. Vettel, there's almost nothing, especially in qualifying. He is quiet as a mouse. So it could just be the way Vettel likes things. So his engineer's sort of not used to having to tell him, you've got a car 2 seconds behind when a simple error like that happens during the race, So, but that would have fixed so many issues, just wait. You'll get a gap after such and such goes past, sort of thing.
Well, if he managed to rejoin, even if he rejoined back in 14th or 15th with his car fully intact, he still would have been with a good shot of getting into, fourth place, third place, somewhere back up there, fighting. But once you've broken your front wing, as he did underneath Stroll's car, of all people, he ran into Stroll.
Oh, so dumb.
And we've all heard it by now, but just in case anyone out there, if you haven't seen the onboard radios, here's Stroll coming past. Vettel smacks him, he spins Stroll around, and immediately Stroll's on the radio. What an idiot! He came on the track like an idiot and spun me around. And as he's talking, he's doing the exact same thing, and he almost puts Gasly in the wall.
Oh.
It was just you couldn't script that any better either.
What I didn't get is Vettel got the 10-second stop go, Stroll got the 5-second drive through.
That's what I
was like. You can't. That's it. Irregardless of how he got there, because someone did it to him, he can't then go do it to someone else.
No, well, that's I was going to talk about that in our next point in the penalties, but it was exactly the same circumstance. The penalty is for unsafe returning to the track, right?
Yeah.
So Vettel gets 10 seconds. The only difference was that Stroll did not make contact with Gasly. But still, he forced him fully off the track. He's lucky that there was a bit of runoff there.
Yeah, I don't get why Stroll got one thing and Vettel got the other.
Same penalty. Yeah, I thought it was the same penalty.
Yeah, it should have been. But so there's also obviously the rumour mill gets stronger after the Monza race. But Vettel at the end of the year, does he? I know he signed on till 2020. At the end of 2020, is he gonna? Should he stay?
Look, the way I see Vettel from this point on is Vettel can't leave Ferrari and Ferrari can't sack Vettel.
No, they can't. Not at the moment.
It's kind of in a stalemate because, and I just don't mean they can't, but it's kind of like Vettel doesn't have a better option than where he is right now, and Ferrari doesn't have a better option than Vettel right now. So the only way I see Vettel leaving Ferrari is if these rumours of Red Bull actually come to fruition and somehow Vettel and Max do a direct swap.
Right.
That is the only way I can see it happening. There's no way Vettel's going to Red Bull with Max there.
No, not a chance.
So for me, it's just leaning more and more towards Vettel retires at the end of the year unless somehow he gets his shit together.
I think if he can work out a deal where he can, I don't know, just take a break, but, be the test driver or just something where he's still honing his skills, so to speak. He's still using the simulator. He's still sort of within the ecosystem and has the opportunity to come back after that. That might do him some good because I just don't see him hanging around at the moment. I just don't see him performing.
There's so many people touting this sabbatical, but you don't really have a sabbatical and come back and then still be a force. And then who does Ferrari put in that seat for 1 year, and then where does Vettel slot back in?
I know that's probably not going to happen, but I think that's what needs to happen.
So,
he could do it.
actually, yesterday something was brought up on social media in the F1 Armchair. We'll give them a shout out. F1 Armchair Facebook page. Durko put up a post about this, and he actually said, "Why doesn't Vettel? Maybe it's time for him to just take the rest of this year off." And that just got me thinking. And I thought, you know what? That's actually probably the best option. This year is already a write-off.
Yeah.
Just call it. Just have the next 6-7 races off. Go be with your family. Do whatever you need to do. Clear your head from all of this crap. Go and see a few psychiatrists. Do something. Go and race motorbikes if that's what you need to do to just, find your mojo back. And then come after the new year, if he still, doesn't have that burning fire to come back to Formula One, then he just retires. But if he's actually, somehow managed to reset himself, he comes back firing next year. Because for me personally, I feel like it's very Alonso-esque what's going on with Vettel right now. He's like saying the right things and going through the motions because he loves driving, he loves racing.
Yep.
But I just feel like he's not really loving what he's doing right now. If that makes sense. Like, he's just not loving Formula One right now.
Yeah, well, it's hard to when everything's going against you.
Yeah.
And especially, I can't imagine what was going through his head when he saw Leclerc take that win. Because that's got to be... He's been dreaming of that for so long.
He wants to succeed with Ferrari so badly. He really does. I seen a thing with Brundle over the weekend, and
I saw that too. He seems really passionate about the Ferrari culture and everything.
Like, he just wants to succeed with Ferrari so badly, but it's just like,
maybe that's the problem.
It's just not happening. He's overdriving. It's in his head. We can go back to Germany last year. We can say that broke him. We can say all the mistakes he's made chasing Hamilton down have broken him. Now we can say Leclerc's broken him.
Yeah.
Everything it just keeps compounding, and building up against him.
Well, I'd have to agree with having the rest of the year off. I think that'd do him a lot more good than if he hung around.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I just thought it was actually a very good idea.
No, I think it's a great idea too. So, anyway, that's just Vettel. I know a lot of people have different opinions on it, but yeah, he's just not... His form is off. There's no other way about it.
Like I said, I've got nothing left, man. I've been tipping him all year for the win, and I definitely cannot tip him anymore until he does it.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. All right. Well, that is 4 lights done. Sorry, 3 lights done. On to the 4th. The penalties.
We touched on to that.
There were a lot of penalties for very different reasons given out. During that, there were some very busy stewards.
The oddest one of them all was the Kimi Räikkönen one because he needed a gearbox change after binning it in qualifying.
Yep.
And it so happens that the team thought that they could change his tyres because he was actually in Q3. So he's supposed to start the race on those tyres. But apparently the rule is if you are required to make a chassis change, then apparently you can change your tyres. But other than that, you are supposed to start on your Q3 tyres, which he did not. So he was given a pretty harsh penalty too. Was it a 10-second penalty as well?
Yeah, it was a stop-go. So
that was a really odd one. He just had a really crap weekend.
Yeah, it was one to forget for Räikkönen. It was not great. It was kind of weird the way his car sort of spun around the way it did, and it was odd just the way it lost traction like that. But yeah,
he's not one to just bin it, very often, and let alone twice in one weekend.
No, that's true. So there was that one. There was the Vettel, and then the Stroll one, which were different. There was
Albon.
Yeah, Albon. Yeah, he did well to recover from his penalty.
It was a no-brainer though, because he fully cut the chicane, got clear advantage, passed. I think it was it one of the Husses, and
Can't quite remember.
or it might have been Kvyat.
I think it was in my head. My gut's saying Kvyat, so I'm just going to go with that.
But once again, I don't understand why the team didn't immediately tell him give the place back, because then they let it go, and what happened is another car got between them because he passed someone else. So now you can't just give back the spot, so he had to get the penalty. It was a no-brainer.
It was a no-brainer. It was weird because I'm sort of watching it like he really needs to, readdress that.
It was early on in the race.
Yeah, obviously an advantage.
And as a driver, he's obviously not going to just yield, but surely, you got 3 laps, I think the rule is. The team, I don't understand why they didn't think, just let's err on the side of safety here and just, let him pass you back, champ.
Now, who were the other ones? I'm struggling to remember the rest because there were just so many. Did Sainz get one? He got one for probably an unsafe release.
He got one before the tyre, which actually put him out of the race.
Yep. Cross-threaded there.
That was the other talk on. He didn't get a penalty for it, but on social media there was a lot of chatter and debate about the Albon and Sainz fight that they had in the second Lesmos.
Oh yeah.
They were saying that Sainz, I heard, maybe even Crofty was saying it, that Sainz should have given him more room. It was a bit naughty, but
no,
I thought it was a bit freaking ballsy from Albon trying to hang it out the outside.
Well,
there. Like, if anything, he's the one who should have been yielding.
He said that in the interview. He said, I knew it was risky, but he said I had to go for it because the only real chance we had to get overtakes was in the corners because we were a lot stronger in the corners. So he said, I just went for it. And he was so lucky not to be bogged down or anything because he got out of that relatively easily.
Yeah,
but it was. I was
but
wincing when he went into there side by side with Sainz. I was like, this is never a good spot, man.
Like, if they lock wheels or something at that point, God knows the accident that could have happened because that's pretty fast corner too.
Yeah. Jesus. I'm just trying to think. I know there were other penalties, but there were just a lot of them. The stewards were busy people.
No, well, because it was the F3s and the F2s, and there was a lot of penalties being thrown out. That's why there was so much penalty talk. But I don't think there was any other major penalties given in the Formula One that stands out to me at this point. So
the stewards overall, do you think they did I think they did a decent job. I know we don't always agree with the decisions, but I thought they did a good job with what they had. Yeah.
I just think every race we're setting new precedents, and I'm just very interested to see where we're going to end up with it, because now again, like we said earlier, Hamilton said now he knows the rules, so they've obviously opened it up. They said they were going to, so they're letting them race.
Yep.
But let's just see how far they let them go. Like,
well, I reckon
I love it.
I reckon the stewards they had at Monza should be the stewards for every race.
I think Michael Massey is doing a great job at the moment. He brought in the black and white flag. I don't necessarily agree with the way it was used this week, but it's
just as a warning.
Slapping. Yeah, it's better than just slapping someone and then.
I always thought if you got the black and white flag, you were told to go home.
Is that not the black flag?
Well, there's a black and orange. That's for pitting. You got damage. You could be right. Black and white. I don't know. There's so many flags in motorsport. If you get shown
the black flag, you have to pull into the pits.
Yeah.
You're done.
But I've just never seen the black and white flag used sort of the way it was used. But I guess it worked because it kept the racing. It kept us with the good racing. It didn't ruin anything, and it sort of made a
It gets referred to as the yellow card in soccer.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of in two minds. I've probably got a bit more to say on it, but I don't want to get out of time here, so we'll just leave that one for another time.
All right. Let's go to the fifth light then.
Our last light for Monza is our boy Dan and the Renault.
They were on it.
They've obviously got a very slippery car.
Oh, yeah.
and it's very Ferrari-like. I think, in preseason testing, their front wing concept and everything was actually similar with the Ferrari as well.
Yep.
They performed well in France earlier this year. They performed well in Canada. So they actually seemed to have quite a bit of pace last week, but just things didn't pan out well for them with, Dan being struck in turn one with Stroll and whatnot. And they obviously killed it this weekend. So that car obviously performs very well in low downforce tracks.
Which probably means they're going to struggle at Singapore.
Oh, you would think so. I'm hoping, fingers, toes, everything crossed. I'm hoping that there's some of these upgrades that they've been bringing are finally working, and this wasn't just a one-off, and they're actually in the fight somewhere in that mid-pack next week. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
I'll just read a quote from one of the Renault boys. It says, "On the engine side, we proved that it was much, much better, a big improvement. On the chassis side, we still need to work hard, especially when you have certain philosophy of car. It's very difficult to change big things in the year. That's still the main point we have to focus on." So, yeah, there's obviously, they're down on power a little bit, but overall, like you said, a slippery car. And
well,
I think they want some upgrades in the next few races, so, I don't know. Maybe they'll get something out of it.
We said about the power becoming parity with the engines because of the rules have been so stable. Now, I actually even made fun of Cyril a bit full of wool when he was touting that they had 1,000 horsepower. Mate, he might have just proved this weekend that they do have 1,000 horsepower. Yeah,
well, they're good in where they don't need downforce. They're all over it.
Yeah,
all over it.
And that now we come to the question that a lot of people have been asking all year: of has Dan made the right decision by going to Renault? Is he regretting it? Is he looking for every which way to get out of it? Now they've proved they've got the power there now. So maybe this is kind of like answering the critics in the sense that, it's just taking a little bit longer maybe than we all hoped that it might.
Well, they said 5 or so years. So, I mean, if they've made that much progress this year, that's a good grounding for what's to come. I don't think Ricciardo thought he was going to be winning races anytime soon, but to be fighting up there in the mid-pack now and be overtaking people in the constructors, they've got to be pretty happy with the way things are going.
Well, that was Ricciardo's best finish, equaling his best finish at Monza.
Yep.
And it was Renault's best finish since 2009 in a race.
Yeah, right. Well, they've overtaken Toro Rosso now in the constructors. And
they're less than 20 points behind McLaren now.
Yeah, McLaren are on 83 and Renault on 65. So it's all heating up for the best of the rest, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So anything could happen towards the end of the year. I mean, they don't really expect much from Russia or Singapore, but time will tell.
Russia's got Sector 1 is that big, long, sweeping straight. It's a power hungry, and then Sector 3, their power could come into play, but in the middle, in Sector 2, they're going to struggle big time through the fiddly bits.
Yep.
The only track I'm possibly seeing that they might be looking forward to in this back end of the season might be Mexico.
Yeah.
But that's about it, really.
Do you reckon they'll do any good at Suzuka? I know, because it's got the first sector where it's got the S's, and then you come up the hill and around, and then I don't know.
Well,
maybe not.
There's a lot of bends there.
There's
those S's right through that first section up the hill.
I wonder how much that'll hurt them at the start, the first sector there at Suzuka. because it's just all turn.
I'll let you know. That's right where I will be sitting.
You will be? Oh, will you? Right there. All right.
Yeah, on the centre S's.
All right. Well, hopefully we can do a live cross to that one. So keep an eye out on that one, guys.
We'll be working something out, guys. Yes.
Much like we tried to do the live cross at Melbourne, we'll see if we can't do something for the Japanese Grand Prix.
Nah, we were amateurs then.
Hey. Well, we were. I mean, I've done my share of racing before, but I've never done a live cross before, so that was interesting.
Yeah, look at that. We're 17 episodes old now.
I know. We're veterans. We've been there, done that. All right. Well, that's the five lights on. Five lights out segment. Sorry, I beat you to it. Checkered flag. We can go over a few topics. We didn't get the quiet fit in. No, Stroll into Q3. You thought that was quite amazing.
Well, as I say, you've got to give credit where credit's due, and he made it into Q3.
I know. I didn't expect him to make it, but hey, whatever. He's really weird and inconsistent sometimes, though. Stroll.
They've got the power. I mean, there's 3 turns on this track, so he did well.
Well, Perez is signed on for 3 years. Does that mean is Stroll going to be at Racing Point next year?
No. Is that a real question?
Well, I honestly don't know. Is he?
How can he not be?
Well, how can he be?
Going to sack him?
I mean,
his dad ain't going to be sacking him.
Well, what if something else comes along?
Like Ferrari comes knocking on Stroll's door to replace Vettel.
Well, Ferrari won't be taking Stroll. No way. Not a chance of that.
Oh, jeez. But anyway, I just thought I had to mention it, He did get it into Q3 after, what was it, 1,000,005 Q3 exits.
Yeah, he'd really struggled. Well, he struggled for a long, long time. So,
and
whatever.
The other notable mention, I have to give a massive thank you to the camera crew at Monza this week, because they were just so on point. I really wanted to see those trees while Hamilton and Leclerc were going at it through the Lesmos. I mean, I don't want to watch the cars, man. I really wanted to see those trees, man. It was amazing. Those helicopter shots they were showing us, following the line of those trees around the track. And then just as Hamilton's trying to pass Leclerc, then they would show us those Ferrari fans in the grandstands who I was just trying to see if I recognised any of them, but unfortunately I didn't. So just massive thumbs up to the camera crew, man. They are just so awesome. They really get this, what their job is supposed to be.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Fucking idiots.
One thing I want to talk about quickly, it goes back to Hamilton. We had the lap 17 where Mercedes faked another pit stop. It's
becoming a joke.
It is. And Brundle made a point of saying that it's been outlawed. So, and I thought I tried to get the radios of both Bottas and Hamilton. I don't really think they were even talking to them to, box, because I think they were trying to get Ferrari to respond, which didn't really work. But if you can't do it, you can't do it.
As you know, this has been another bugbear of mine, and I've brought it up a few times, and it's literally just a joke now. Personally, as a Formula One fan, I don't care if they all did this. It's just throwing the dummy, trying to trick the other team into coming into the pits.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is it's banned. You're not supposed to do it. You can't do it. Why do they continually let Mercedes get away with it?
I don't know. But yeah, it's becoming a habit now, and it like you said, if it was introduced and it was allowed to be done, I don't really care. But like you said, the main point is it's an outlawed practice, so start policing it.
I find it even very odd that teams like Red Bull and Ferrari aren't protesting against it, because
it's
becoming a regular occurrence now. And back in the old days with Ron Dennis there, and in the Schumacher days with Ferrari, mate, they were protesting each other for farting.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I mean, if I was one of the other teams, I'd be up every time they did it. I'd be upstairs telling the FIA, come on, have a look at this. This is outlawed. Something needs to be done.
So I honestly don't get it. Maybe then I start thinking, have I missed something? Did they, override that rule? But then I think, well, why aren't the others doing it then? So surely it's still a rule, and only Mercedes thinks it doesn't apply to them.
Yeah, I might do some research and find out. The other thing, we did touch on it last week as well, was the booing and cheering. Lap 42, Hamilton locks up, the crowd cheers, because that means Leclerc gets a bit of a breather. Not a lot, but he gets a little bit of a breather, because obviously everyone's a Ferrari fan at Monza. He gets on the podium, he gets the boos. Hamilton on Instagram or whatever was like, I'd like to see it. He goes, I can take it, but, I'd like to, because Italy's a beautiful country, he says all those things, I'd like to see it. But it happens, I've seen it happen to other drivers at the Silverstone Grand Prix.
The best response I heard to that Hamilton's Instagram post was, so they're not the best fans in Monza then?
Well, he says that to everyone.
Everyone
Yeah.
They're always the best fans,
Yeah.
and someone said, so they're not the best fans in Monza? But I thought it was funny. But
yeah, like, is this an issue? Is this really an issue about booing and cheering when things happen?
For me, it's completely different circumstances of the booing from last week when he drove the car into a wall, and to being booed by the opposition fans, so to speak, on the podium. That's, to me, it's a completely different scenario.
Yep.
And I guess if you're asking me if I have an issue with it, I probably don't have an issue with it being booed there, but I have a big issue with someone booing when they're crashing, or
I get your feelings for the crashing side of things, but I'll lock up.
Like booing and cheering for when someone slams their car into a wall. That's a bit that's not cool, man.
Yeah, but he locked up. They cheered. He got a podium. They booed him. It's going to happen. You're a sportsman. People aren't going to. Not everyone's going to like you.
That's exactly right.
So, I don't know. I just think in that situation, I don't think there was an issue. It's sport. If people think it's so offensive, then I kind of wonder how long you've been watching sport. Because it happens everywhere. It happens every single sport. That's just. I just think it's a part of the game. The game of sport.
It is. In this day and age, it is now. That's correct. And just maybe to a certain extent, the ego in Hamilton just can't handle it when not everyone loves him.
Yeah, well, not everyone does love you, Hamilton, I'm sorry to say. Sometimes I love you, sometimes I absolutely hate him.
Moving to the other multiple world champion on the grid, or going back to him for a second, is our mate Vettel.
Yep.
Who is now only 3 points away from a race ban.
Yeah, that's... I think that says a lot, actually, of just the current form he's in.
Oh, exactly. A 4-time world champion, one major mistake away from being banned from racing.
And we're only just past halfway.
Like, remember all the fun we were making of Grosjean, and was it last year or the year before when he was 1 point or 2 points away from a race ban? And so now
was Maldonado close at one point as well?
So now, well, he might have been. I can't remember off the top of my head on that one.
Yep.
But at the very least, we're comparing Vettel to Grosjean. Now, in what universe would you have been doing that 3 years ago?
Nah, he wouldn't have thought of it happening.
No, so he just might be getting that forced sabbatical.
So do you think he'll get a ban at some point? Because I think it'll happen. I don't know when. But I just don't think his current form, for him to be that close to a race ban at just past the halfway point, statistically it's going to happen. I just can't believe
just
it.
Getting over the fact that he's one major mistake away from it.
Yeah, that's all he needs. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Un-freaking believable.
Now, the other unbelievable story of the weekend is that Hamilton is now invested in a hamburger chain, a meat-free hamburger chain. So Hamilton is going to have a hamburger store with no ham in it.
So where does he get his vitamin B12?
Oh, you'll have to ask him because he's a full-blown vegan for the last 2 years now. So
okay, because you need B12.
What I've noticed is becoming a big thing now. All these superstars and celebrities are investing in this meat-free meat-free meats.
I don't care if you do it. I just don't push it on me because I just don't. I like my meat, and I mean he doesn't. I've heard him talk about it, saying, "Oh, it makes me feel better, and I feel so healthy." And if it works for you, mate, so be it. Whatever. But good luck to him. If he can make some money off some vegans, go for it.
I'm more with you on this one. Yeah, I'm more likely to say, "Can I have a hamburger with no buns, please," rather than no meat.
Yeah. I mean, I have had veggie burgers before, and they're not all terrible. So, I mean, but sometimes the substitutions aren't quite as good. Sorry.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the Monza weekend.
Yes, it was an incredible finish. I got a bit emotional. I don't know why. I really, really loved that podium. It was magic. It was so good to see Ferrari win again. And we had a really good race as well, regardless of if people think it was too much. Should have been penalties. I think it was what Formula One needed.
Oh, mate, that's 6-7 races in a row now.
Yeah.
Since France, man.
Well, I do want to say, apparently the boys at WTF1 didn't think it was a banger. They didn't want to say it was 6 good races in a row. They didn't think it was quite that good.
Wow. Well,
I don't know why they think that, but I thought it was awesome.
Because there wasn't 16,000 overtakes.
Yeah, overtakes don't make a race.
It was a ripper of a race, I thought.
If you had that every race where you had someone defending for 50, 60 laps, and we didn't get a single overtake, I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
That's what I've told you before. You know, this Formula One is not about overtaking. Sure, we want to see the overtakes and we want to see the moves, but it is a multi-million-dollar high-speed game of chess, and that's what we got this weekend. We had Hamilton trying everything, just, left, right, up Leclerc's butt, and conversely, we had Leclerc trying everything he had to defend. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was. So, because you always see those programs and statistics where like, oh, we had this many overtakes. It's like, but that doesn't make a good race.
No.
Because I've seen plenty of races over the years with plenty of overtaking, and they've been very dull. So, well done, Monza. They also signed another
5 years.
Yep. And I heard that both Mugello and Imola are wanting to put a bid in the future.
Man, I want my mother country to put another bid in, and I want to see Istanbul Park back on the calendar.
Turkey?
Yes, I want to see Turn 8 back.
I don't really remember Turkey, but...
Oh, do yourself a favour, look it up. Just look up Turn 8 at Istanbul Park.
I will have to. All right. The S3 awards this week. Superstar, Surpriser, and the Stinker. I'm going to start us off with the Superstar, who will get 2 points for the tally. I have to give it to Leclerc. He was just a lone wolf out there doing anything and everything he could to win.
Mate, I'm with you on that one. I cannot go past Leclerc this weekend.
Yeah, it was just a superstar performance. So 2 points to Leclerc from both of us. The Surpriser, I have to give it to Ricciardo. I thought it was just a good race. He was behind Hülkenberg at one point, got through him, made the right calls. Renault up as high as it was, I think it was perfect.
Look, mate, just so you know, I'm showing you on our webcam here. I've already got this written down, so I'm not copying you. So I've also got it for Dan.
So your stinker, who was your stinker? I'm going to let you say it.
I've got Vettel for my stinker.
So do I. Wow, we've actually
And
agreed.
I'm actually already writing it down for you as I'm saying Vettel, because you can't give it to anyone else.
We don't often agree on all three.
No, we actually did. We in sync this week, and I think we might even be in sync with the rookie.
Albon?
Oh, no.
I gave it to
You let me
Albon.
down.
Who'd you give it to?
I slammed Gio last week for dropping it on the last lap.
That was
but
bad.
I had to give it to him for a redemption this week.
He did do good this week. I just thought with Verstappen out, Albon getting the penalty, and then after that first few laps he settled down and he sort of recovered really well. So
I tell you what, next week, not next weekend, but the next race at Singapore, that's going to be the first real head-to-head we're going to have between Albon and Max.
Albon and Verstappen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, Albon started at the back last week, Max started at the back this week, so in Singapore it's going to be a level playing field, and we're going to get a real gauge on where Albon is in comparison.
As long as
to Max.
Verstappen doesn't crash out again.
It wasn't really his fault, that one.
No, I know, but just annoying to see. Just happens.
Before we move right off the Formula One, just one more thing I was going to mention, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen the footage of, was the young Aussie Alex Peroni in the F3s.
Oh,
how he just
that was insane.
Launched in the air, coming around the parabolic off a sausage curb. I don't know about you, but the first time I saw it, I actually had to look at it 2 or 3 times. I thought it was someone posting like a glitch in iRacing or something. That's what it looked to me like, because he was by himself.
It did look like
going
that.
around the outside, and all of a sudden the car just launched in the air. And multiple flips. He actually landed on the barrier on the halo. So there's another one for the halo.
Yeah, indeed.
He didn't get out of it totally unscathed, but
He walked away, that's the main thing.
yes, if you've seen the accident, he walked away from it relatively unscathed. I think he's got a fractured vertebrae and,
I'm not surprised.
yeah, like nothing too major. I mean, I've never had a fractured vertebrae, but compared to the accident, yeah, it was like, thank God he got out of that.
Oh, yeah, it was insane, especially after what happened at Belgium.
Exactly.
Podium predictions. I might do them now.
Yeah.
How did we go for Monza, and what are
You got-
yours for Singapore?
You got 1 point, bro, for Leclerc.
Yeah,
And
bro.
you were the only scorer.
And where did I put Hamilton? Second.
You put him third.
Oh, did I?
Oh, you got...
That's two.
He did... Oh, jeez. You scored 2.
I need to go over and double check your scoring now. Fucking
Yeah, because you had Vettel second, you had Max fourth, and you had Sainz
Fifth. I had Hamilton third.
Yeah.
I thought I had Hamilton third.
I had Hamilton and Bottas the wrong way around. I had Ham second and Bottas third.
So did you get any points?
Nope.
Nope. So I got 2.
Yep.
Yes.
You're just killing it.
Well, you're starting to catch
Yeah.
in the fantasy.
Next week in Singapore, I struggled picking this one, man,
This is a bit of a tough one.
because I feel like the Red Bulls are going to be really strong there. I know the Mercedes are definitely going to be back on song there.
Yes, they will.
I think the McLarens are going to be back into their best of the rest, probably. I mean, I can't really see the Renaults outdoing the McLarens around Singapore.
No, I don't think it'll happen.
So I've ended up with Hamilton on top. I've got Max in second.
Yep.
I've got Bottas third. I've got old mate Vettel in fourth.
Jesus. All right.
And I've got Sainz in fifth. I don't know what's happening to Leclerc.
You might crash out, make a mistake.
Maybe his engine will blow up. I don't know.
Something. Well, I'm going to give the Red Bull Hondas a win with Verstappen. I think you'll get it. And then I'll give it to Hamilton and Bottas second and third. Because they're just going to be fast.
Mm-hmm.
Leclerc in fourth. And I'm going to put old mate Vettel in fifth.
Mm-hmm.
I
thought you might have put Albon in fifth.
Yeah, the fifth. I'm not so convinced that Vettel will be fifth, but I'm just going to go with that for this week. I just thought I'm just going to.
We just find it so hard to leave him out of the top 5, don't we?
It's hard, but anyway, I'll see what happens. I'm not doing too bad with the points, so
no, you're going all right.
I'm going to stick with that. And yeah, so that's our predictions for Singapore coming up next Grand Prix, which will be interesting. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Sim racing and esports news. You've got a fair bit there, Aussie.
Oh, just a couple of quick ones. I noticed, and I know you watched it as well. Anthony Davison, he went into the Mercedes simulator.
Oh,
and
yep.
They showed us the inside workings of it and everything. And I just thought it was a really good piece. 5-10 minute piece of watching, and just goes to show, the amount of effort that goes in with these simulators. And one thing that really did surprise me is, obviously they don't have test drivers, so to speak, as the old days where they used to go smashing out these laps in a real car on a real track. So now it's very much focused in these simulators, but they've got a whole engineer team there. They've got setting up the setups, but the driver has no idea what setups are being loaded in.
I thought that was quite interesting.
That's right. And
the way he could just pick it, like,
yeah,
you've got this doing, I found this in the corners, and I was like, no wonder he's chosen to do the SkyPad, because this is what he does. It's his bread and butter.
And did you hear when the engineer said that, Ant is so good at this that, we can load a setup in now, like today, and then he'll come back afterwards when they're doing their debrief after the session, and he'll say, oh, that third setup that we tried reminds me of the one that we did back in April on such and such. Like,
I know.
He said he's that good. Like, I was like, wow, man.
Yeah, that was impressive. I was very impressed with what's involved with all that.
And the other thing that made me laugh was, I know my family and stuff have had goes at me with, my sim racing and how I use gloves, and I use, I have actual, sim racing boots that I use. Otherwise, when I first started, I was getting bruises on the bottom of my feet, so I actually use shoes.
Yep.
And they have a laugh at me, but here we are, Ant getting into the simulator, and he's in his full fireproof race suit, and he puts his helmet on and everything. Like, it's a full simulation.
Well, I suppose you gotta, because you gotta, what you can see exactly, and the feeling and the sensation as close as possible to the real thing. Because the only thing he said they don't get is the G-forces.
And that was the thing that surprised me, that they actually even put the helmet on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'd make a difference.
But I thought that was a great insight.
Yeah, I thought it was too, and it was very interesting, because it's not often we get to see the Formula One team simulator setup. So, yeah, I found that very interesting. I dropped all my things when I saw that coming on TV. I was like, I want to watch this.
Yeah,
so very impressed with what Anthony can do behind the wheel, especially just on the graphics are really good too. Did you notice?
Yeah, I was trying to see if it's anything we know, but obviously these guys have got their own programmers probably making this.
Oh, it'd possibly be based on, a commercially available build, but developed a little bit more for Mercedes and whatever. So, I don't know what the engine is that they're using, but it could be something like, I've seen V8 teams use iRacing, or it could be an R Factor commercially, not a commercial, but like a what's it called? A commercial grade build type thing, not consumer. Yeah. I'm getting my words mixed up. So yeah, anyway, it was I thought it was interesting. Yeah, agreed.
So, yeah, and the other point I had was just another reminder to everybody that my league is racing this Friday. We've got the F2 League on Thursday.
Yeah, 8:30 p.m.
We are doing our Monza weekend, so the F2s will be at Monza on Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Sydney time. Live broadcast, as usual, on our Facebooks, on our YouTubes. And then the F1 boys, we are racing this Friday night at Monza as well. Mm-hmm. So tune in and catch the action. It should be a very close race, I think, around Monza, because there's not really too many places to make up times, so to speak. So a lot of the guys are very close.
Yeah, I'll be calling all that Let's see if Zen can get a win this week for Mercedes. See if you can.
See if I can get on the podium again.
Yeah.
I've got one podium, in my sim racing F1 life so far.
Oh well, just means that. Well, you've got more than Hulkenberg.
Yeah, that's right. I'm ahead of Hulkenberg. I like that one. The Sim Racing Expo was at Nürburgring in Germany last week, and I was catching a bit of news from that, and I thought, oh man, why can't we get them to come to Australia once? Why do they want to go to Nürburgring for?
Oh, I know. It's annoying, but it'd be nice to see a Sim Racing Expo like that in. It'd probably go to Sydney or Melbourne, but I'd fly down for that.
Yeah, well, I would if it was up there at Brisbane for argument's sake, I would definitely be considering going up there for it. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And there was just new products, new everything, and I'm a Fanatic user, and a lot of the guys in my league have Fanatic products, so they've got a brand new Porsche 911 wheel coming out, which looks very tasty, and has made me raise an eyebrow at that one because I do need a round wheel. I was going to buy the BMW one, but I might have to hold out for this Porsche wheel.
I think they've got a new app for Assetto Corsa as well to set up your wheels.
It's called Fana Labs.
Yeah,
and it's for PC racing on all of the sims, and it's actually for fine tuning your equipment, and it's actually I've had a little bit of a play with it, but it looks pretty good at the moment. Like you can fine tune like the oscillations out of your wheel and so forth, like that going down the straight. Whereas like now, as it was before this app, you have to turn your dampers up, for example, on your wheel to stop the oscillation at speed. But then when you're going around slow corners, then your steering wheel just feels heavy. So
yeah.
With this app now, you can actually make it speed sensitive. So at certain speeds, that's when the damper will go up and so forth. So it's pretty involved, but it's definitely something that Fanatec have done really well there.
Oh, that's good.
I think.
It's really these last two events for GT Sport have been really close together, but on Friday they're at the Red Bull Ring for the next World Finals event. I have no idea why they've been so close, but they are. So there you go. So new manufacturer and a Nations Cup winner will be out of that one.
Oh, that's the one that was just on like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
with
in New
Fraga
York. So they're now in Austria for the next one.
Jeez, these guys are travelling like real race car drivers.
Yeah, man. So, it's not the FNO1 Esports League, but the SFR GT Challenge on Demo 1 has started again. And I think we've got about 4 or 5 of the world finalists in that league. So, if you're a GT Sport fan, definitely want to watch out for it. It's on Mondays at 10 a.m. So it's a US-based league. But, it's always there to watch on replay as well. So, yeah, they're going to be at Red Bull, and a few of them will be racing in the next couple of weeks in the SFR GT Challenge. So that'll be interesting too.
Okay, very good. We don't have any delegates in the F1 Esports Pro Series from our league just yet. So, but I just thought I'd mention it. We're recording this on a Wednesday today. We're a little bit late, but tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. is the first round of the finals. So the qualifying is all over for the F1 Esports. So it's the official finals start tomorrow morning. Yep. It'll probably have already run by the time you're listening to this, but mark it in your calendars because there's 2 or 3 more rounds after this. So, and Fox Sports is showing it live as well.
Have you seen Brendan Lee lately? He did a video for Mercedes doing I think it was a lap around Spa.
Yeah, he does it before every race now.
He looks so much fitter than what he did when he first got involved. He looks like
That's actually a good point.
He looks like he's lost weight. He looks like he's put on a bit of muscle mass. Looks like he's really like they've put him on a diet and a exercise program.
Well, he is now their official or one of their sim drivers, isn't he?
He was wearing all Mercedes gear, so
I think he is. He's one of their official sim drivers. I won't say he's the official sim tester, but he is one of their sim race drivers now, like officially employed by them. So maybe they do put him on a bit of a fitness regimen because he wasn't fat, but he was a bit plumpy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had a bit of baby fat, so to speak, around his face, but you look at him now and he's a lot slimmer and just looks like he's been on a diet. So that's interesting.
That you mention it, yeah, I can see it now. Like I didn't really think twice about it when I did see him, but now that you've pointed it out, you're right.
Yeah, so sim racing is healthy.
And just in case anyone's wondering who Brendan Lee is, he is the bloke who's won the F1 Esports series, the official series, twice, two in a row.
Yeah, so he's so quick.
He's a two-time champion.
I was watching him go around Spa, and I was just like, mate, you're on it. So he's got some skills. Let's end it with the Fantasy League. You beat me again this week, but it was not by a lot. 97 to 107.
You stayed in 7th on our league, but I slipped from 11th to 12th. So even though I had an okay week, but I had Kvyat who lost me points, I had Sainz who lost me points, I had Vettel who lost me points, so I had a lot of minuses this week. I still ended up with 107 points though.
Yeah, Sainz lost me points and so did Kvyat, so Raikkonen got me points, interestingly.
Oh, yeah. See, because I think he started at the back and fought his way through. I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
The amount of cars they pass.
I did
Maybe
know it at
next
one
year. I'm gonna really learn how they give points next year.
It is really complicated. But who's your manufacturer? Is it Ferrari or?
I've got Ferrari.
I got Mercedes. They seem to just be consistent, so that's why I go with them. But I stayed
Ferrari's
7th.
pretty consistent too.
Who's winning it actually? Who is?
Ferrari's just not consistently winning. They're just consistently stuffing it.
Yeah, well, that's why I didn't pick them, because I'm like, I can at least count on Mercedes to get me decent points every week.
I like to live on the edge.
Well, Bethany's still winning, so 2,342 points.
What are you, about 1,900?
I'm 1,987, so yeah, I'm about 400 points away. So I think I've closed the gap a bit, but it's still a fair distance. But who's dead last? Force Army.
The guys who aren't doing it anymore, I would have to imagine.
Sean's got a few, Craig. All right, cool. All right, well, don't forget you can join that as well. All the information is in the description, including the league password for that. And don't be afraid to join, even though we're halfway through. You will start being counted from the week that you join, so you'll be versing everyone from that point on, not from the start. But that about wraps up tonight's podcast, I think, which has been pretty jam-packed, an hour and a half.
Yeah, we seem to hit that hour and a half mark pretty regularly. We're consistent like Mercedes.
Yeah, we're just consistent. I do apologise about it going to be a little bit late this week, but things happen. But I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for coming along. Don't forget to leave a rating if you are on, especially iTunes as well. We'd like to have the 5-star. And
guys,
again,
hit
the
like
Facebook.
button.
Don't forget we're on the